Welcome into the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. There is a very, very popular show on Netflix called Making a Murderer. I know you've all seen it. You're all very, very interested in the case of Steven Avery. You've all taken one or two looks at the program, and you all have opinions on that show. The book that was out there before Making a Murderer is Wrecking Crew by John Ferak, Demolishing the Case Against Steven Avery. It's celebrating its 5th anniversary in November of 2023. And it's been re-released with a new epilogue, with a new interview with Steven Avery and his attorney, Catherine Zellner. And I got the privilege of being able to read the book over the weekend and take a look at this new interview with Steven Avery and be able to read the book once again and take a look at John Ferak's work and kind of see the case again through this perspective and really break down the case again and see some things that I wanted to ask John about and bring up this case again, because I think when we get into that rush of the making for lack of a better term, the Steven Avery case and in getting behind that fervor of the Netflix fervor, if you will, a lot of people were enraged when it first came out and they wanted to get behind Steven Avery, and then it died down. And now Steven Avery sits in a jail cell and nothing's happened. There's been no appeal. There's been no moving of the wheels of justice. There's been no look at the case. There's been no look at what's been going on with the ancillary players in this. There's a theory that Bobby Dassey was the killer in this case. He was the one who killed Teresa Halbach. We'll ask John Ferak about that. And we'll deal in that theory that's been sitting in the background here for so long. And why have the wheels of justice in Wisconsin been turning so slowly? And is there the Making of a Murderer 3 in the background? Because I think the state of Wisconsin and Manitowoc County is really afraid of Making of a Murderer 3. Is that a possibility here? We'll talk about that with our guest today, John Ferak. John Ferak is a native of Joliet, Illinois, and returned to his roots in 2017 to become the editor-reporter of the Joliet Patch. He previously spent 5 years with the Wisconsin investigative team for USA Today Network and 9 years in Nebraska at the Omaha World Herald newspaper. He's an authority on wrongful arrest and conviction cases. His 2016 book for Wild Blue Press, Failure of Justice, chronicled the nation's largest wrongful conviction case. His first book, Bloody Lies, told the story about a CSI director who went to prison for planting blood in high-profile Nebraska murder cases. Ferak's 5th true crime book, Wrecking Crew, Demolishing the Case Against Steven Avery, was published through Wild Blue Press on November 20th of 2018. We're celebrating the 5th anniversary with a 5th anniversary edition with a brand new epilogue involving a brand new interview with Steven Avery. Well, let's bring him on the program right now, ladies and gentlemen. Let's welcome in to True Crime Tuesday, John Ferak. John, thanks for coming on to the program.
Thanks for having me on, Tim. Always a pleasure.
John, let's jump into the deep end, if we will, right away, and let's talk about why Steven Avery is still sitting behind bars and why his case hasn't been heard before a brand new judge who's been introduced into the case, into the appeals process. Catherine Zellner has been his attorney since 2016 or 2016, I believe. Why is it that this thing is ground to a halt?
That's a good question to start with, Tim. I think for a lot of people, millions of people probably that watched Making a Murderer, in the first episode, the first docuseries in December of 2015, people immediately came away outraged and frustrated with the Wisconsin justice system. And also there was a lot of people that not necessarily were convinced, Tim, that Avery was innocent, but they felt that even if he was guilty, the system railroaded him, didn't treat him fairly, that the trial was rigged, and certainly a lot of the evidence appeared to have been conjured up or fabricated. So a lot of people took that perspective that they really weren't sure one way or the other whether or not Stephen was guilty or not, but they felt that why not give him a second trial? There's so many people convicted of crimes, especially murder, and sexual assault around the country. And I've covered a lot of these cases where they have, in fact, gotten a second case, a second trial, sometimes even a third case. I remember, oftentimes on technicalities in the legal justice system. So the fact that Avery was fortunate enough that his case drew national and international exposure, and Kathleen Zellner, of all people, one of the country's most acclaimed wrongful conviction lawyers, decides that she's going to take up this case on Steven Avery's behalf. Because again, for background for everybody, he was languishing in prison when the documentary came out, really had no hope, of appeal process. And then, he latches on to Kathleen Zellner, of all people, to take on his case. And here we are now, almost 7, 8 years later, and Steven Avery's plight, his situation, Tim, really hasn't changed much. He was, convicted and, still pursuing post-conviction appeals back in December of 2015 when the docuseries first came out. We've had 2 seasons of Making a Murderer come out, 2015 and also in 2018. Millions and millions of people around the world, really jumped on Steven's bandwagon, and also that of Brendan Dassey, his cousin. But yet here we are. Nothing really has changed. And I think that really dumbfounds and surprises a lot of people, especially based on what they watched in the 2 series of Making a Murderer.
I'm going to hit you from the devil's advocate side of things here for a second, John. I don't mean to do this disrespectfully. I'm doing this just from a devil's advocate side of things. The people who say, well, John, there's a reason for that. And the reason being is that maybe Stephen is part of a party that took place in the murder of Teresa Halbach. Maybe he does have some guilt here. Maybe he is part of the reason that Teresa Halbach is dead. Maybe there is some guilt here. The judge that was part of the original ruling of this case had reason to believe that he was part and party to this. And the people who, and specifically Wisconsin law enforcement, seem to keep referring back to the fact that the people who put together Making a Murderer, specifically the 2 filmmakers, they keep saying, well, you didn't see the entire trial. And Making a Murderer was specific cuts and part and parcel of the trial, not necessarily the entire trial. When you see the entire trial, when you get the entire transcript and you put everything together, you really do see where Steven Avery is guilty. I want you to respond to the naysayers that say, well, when you really see everything the way it's presented, you really do see where Steven Avery is guilty.
I think, for a lot of people, and again, as I pointed out earlier, as far as the guilt, is concerned, the real reason why I think people should be at least open their eyes up to the possibility of a second trial, is that in our American justice system, Tim, there is an expectation that everything is done on the up and up as far as the police and the prosecution are concerned. So if somebody who committed a murder, was arrested and stood trial, and then it's known at the time of the trial or after the fact of the trial that several pieces of evidence, let's just say 3 for the sake of a number, 3 pieces of evidence, were planted or fabricated or made up. But the way our justice system is supposed to work is that conviction should be at that point in time overturned, and the person is either given a new trial or their case goes away. And even if they did commit the crime, as heinous and, as disgusting, and despicable as that is, they should be allowed, either a new trial or or to escape the justice system. I mean, we have standards in our justice system where you can't have, if there was 10 pieces of evidence, 5 are legitimate and 5 are not, and then you're convicted. The police are not supposed to fabricate evidence, and the prosecution is not allowed to hide evidence, especially evidence that could be exculpatory. Exculpatory meaning evidence that benefits the defendant and may point to another suspect or person of interest. That type of information is supposed to be turned over to the defense. And regardless of whether the fact, that making a murder, as we all know, no documentaries are an ad nauseum, repeat or rehash of a trial, whether it's the OJ case or this one with Steven Avery or other famous cases. There's certainly editing that takes place. But I think the main takeaways from Making a Murderer are that the key evidence from the case was presented. You didn't walk away from Making a Murderer, and say, "Oh my God, I can't believe they didn't present, this clue, that proves Steven Avery did it, or that clue." I mean, there were several clues that the police did collect that, if you take them at face value, definitely point to the possibility or probability that Steven Avery only could have done it. Certainly one example, that Tim, being the spare key for her vehicle that turned up on Steven Avery's bedroom floor that contained Steven Avery's DNA on it. So again, you take that face value, you forget about the fact that the police have been in the room 6 or 7 times prior to that key turning up. And then you would say, well, yeah, that's obviously is a strong clue. It definitely points that, Avery probably moved and handled her vehicle. And then lo and behold, his DNA is on the vehicle key. That definitely proves and points to him as the possible, or I should say probable, killer in that case. So, but again, the fact that so many pieces of evidence are called into question and are found by the police, the Manitowoc County Police of all people too, the whole conflict of interest issue, definitely raises questions as far as, whether or not he received a fair trial the first time around. And that's why so many people, believe that he should get a second trial, including people that say he may be guilty. If he is guilty, prove it again, prove it a second time,
Sure.
But do it under, legitimate circumstances. Don't move the goalposts or the bases around.
Sure, absolutely. There's something in the book which and again, for those who have only seen Making a Murderer, both seasons, I encourage them to read Wrecking Crew. And this is why. As someone who is from the Joliet area, or from the Midwest, they don't really get a feel for, and especially if you're on the East Coast or West Coast, you really don't get a feel for what the Midwest is like. And this is the only way I can put it, John. And I put it brilliantly, being a Minnesotan myself, who's worked radio in Wisconsin, who's worked in Western Wisconsin, who's essentially been put in the middle of a cornfield and worked radio in Wisconsin. And it has to do with, and I'm not beating up on law enforcement in Wisconsin whatsoever, but and I don't have a better, I know I'm dancing around the term here. The cronyism of how you hire law enforcement in different small towns is the only way to put it. Sometimes it's as simple as, when you're hiring law enforcement, it's this guy's buddy, or it's we're looking for a new cop in town. Well, so-and-so knows so-and-so who knows so-and-so. Let's make him a cop. It's not necessarily the finest of the finest that get the job. It's, Elmer happens to know Steve, who happens to know, John over here. Well, he happens to be available. He doesn't necessarily have forensic science backgrounds, or he didn't go to school for it, but we're going to train him to be that because he happens to be available.
No, that's a great point, Tim. And that's something that, I've done several interviews over the years as far as about the Steven Avery case. And that's a question that really hasn't come up much. So I'm glad you pointed that out, because that is a key component of the Steven Avery case. And it's definitely true in a lot of high profile cases that happen in the Midwest, because there are so many that don't happen necessarily in Chicago or Milwaukee or Minneapolis, St. Paul, the major cities. And most of the Midwest, as you and I both know, is made up of, communities that are 5,000, 10,000, 25, 50,000 people. And especially in county law enforcement, more so even than city or village law enforcement. Counties, as you well know, the sheriff is elected by the people every 4 years, usually every 4 years. Some places it's 2, but most places nowadays are 4 years. So I've always kind of scratched my head, just growing up, knowing that the sheriff, the top law enforcement official, is really chosen by the people. Now, I could see people come back and say, well, this is our referendum basically on whether or not they're doing a good job. And I can somewhat agree with that. The problem, though, because of that is, as you just point out, so many jobs in law enforcement on the sheriff's side of things, are a patronage job where, somebody's son, and I see this even to this day here in Illinois, there are so many police officers that have a brother or a sister or a father, or a son. And I'm not saying they're not qualified for the job, but a lot of them, people in our profession have sons and daughters that follow in news media as well, but especially in the small towns, there's, as I point out in this case, with Steven Avery's case, there was a key individual that works on his on the murder investigation, and had been involved in another high profile Manitowoc County case over there, and his background was as a school bus driver, and he's really not going anywhere with his life. He dropped out of college, took a job driving a school bus, and then within a year or two, he knows somebody, or where it gets around, hey, the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Office is hiring, and he gets his foot in the door, and within 5-7 years, he's reached the rank of a sergeant or a lieutenant. So, the training aspect is really, it's just not there, unfortunately, for a lot of small town agencies, and every 5-10 years, sooner or later, there is going to be a heinous, god awful crime that's going to happen in one of our Midwestern communities. And, the most experienced police, oftentimes the state police or the Department of Criminal Investigations, or even like the closest metro department or regional task force, oftentimes they don't get called in. A lot of times it's, again, for political reasons that the small town agency wants to be the one to let everybody know, hey, we're the ones that solved it. We didn't need help from Milwaukee or Minneapolis, St. Paul, or Chicago. We solved it on our own. And because of that, no different than in our profession, if people don't have the training and the experience, it definitely could set back a case, an investigation. It can certainly put police, on the wrong path as far as getting tunnel vision in the investigation. And I mean, that's one of the key takeaways I had, at least on the Steven Avery case. Again, regardless of whether or not he is guilty or not of the crime, police immediately latch in on the probability that, oh, it has to be him, because they're convinced that he's such a pariah and a bad person. And a lot of them even struggle to believe that he was innocent of the 1985 rape that he clearly was innocent of. The DNA proved it was Gregory Allen. But the fact that you still had a lot of police that refused to believe DNA and just looked at him as just a bad guy, and then here he is, on the verge of receiving several $1 million, from the police and from his county, just made it all the more, unsettling for a lot of the Manitowoc County police that when a murder happened on the Avery property, again, the Avery property, not just Steven's property, but he became the prime suspect from the get-go, at the exclusion of his other brothers and a few other shady characters that also were affiliated and hung around, the Avery salvage yard compound.
Well, see, that's the thing. And again, with the cronyism or the small town attitude, you also get the, once you run afoul of the police in a small town, then it's the talk. Then it's the, well, they're kind of a bad seed over there. And then you've gotten on their radar, and then you've gained a reputation, and it's hard to shake that reputation.
Right. I mean, I just thought about, I mean, that was definitely true in the first case that I ever wrote a book on, the one you mentioned earlier, Bloody Lies, CSI Scandal in the Heartland. It was a horrific murder. It was, it was basically, repeat of In Cold Blood, Truman Capote's book, except it happened in Nebraska, not in Kansas with the Clutter family. But in that case, a small town sheriff's agency that handled about one murder every 10 to 15 years took over the case, and they immediately learned, like you said, there was a couple bad seeds in the family, a couple wayward cousins. One used to squeal the tires of his vehicle. So that, caught the attention of the sheriff's deputies that patrolled that area of the county. And then the other family members just thought that the murder victim's nephew was the black sheep of the family, and they just figured he had to be involved. And the two get rounded up, arrested, and lo and behold, all the physical evidence comes back negative as far as whether or not there was any DNA that pointed to them as the killers.
And with that, with the combination of cronyism within the police department, lack of sufficient training, I guess you could put it that way, and the not necessarily wanting help from state authorities or from national authorities or from authorities that may have sufficient training. You take that along with wanting to push a narrative that to them makes sense, but you don't want to take a wider scope and look at other scenarios. You want to go with the easiest scenario that presents itself because it's an open and shut case at that point, John. It makes for easy police work to do what you can to solve a case and make it easy for yourself and be able to go back to, again, you're talking about sheriff's departments that get elected. You can say, well, we solved this one easily. It's obviously Steven Avery. We move on with life, and it's Brendan Dassey, and here you go. Here's your convictions. We did it. We didn't need any help, outside help. Ta-da! And we move on with life. And, yay for the sheriff's department. Be sure to elect us on the next election.
Right.
God love us and all that. But what people don't realize is that small town justice isn't necessarily as tidy as that, and it doesn't move like that. And there are complications more times than not. And it's one of those things that, unless somebody speaks up, and it's hard to speak up in a small town, because when you speak up, you get stifled. You get, don't speak up against the man because you're going to have trouble for yourself, or you're going to make trouble.
Well, and that was certainly true even with Steven Avery's first case. There's a earlier chapter in the book, where I talk about an individual that while Steven Avery was in prison, Tim, for the vicious, savage rape of Penny Bernstein along the shores of Lake Michigan, there was at least one individual in town that was going around, trying to let Sheriff Tom Kasorik know that Steven Avery was innocent in that crime, and eventually, the sheriff takes a police report from that fellow himself and basically tells him, if you go around telling, these false rumors, that you're going to get charged with the crime yourself. So hearing something like that from the sheriff himself, again, not, the rookie deputy that works for him, definitely is going to put the fear of God, in somebody's, heart, in a town of 10, 15,000 people,
sure,
that they better keep their mouth shut and, keep their opinions to themselves.
And sometimes it's just to save a little bit of paperwork or save a little bit of trouble, where really it should be, what? Well, if that's the truth, then maybe we should just pursue the truth. And find out what the truth is and do the extra legwork. And more times than not, we're finding that it's just not wanting to pursue the truth because it's a little extra work. And sometimes it's because we don't have the manpower. Sometimes it's because we don't have the man hours. And sometimes it's because if we go down that road, someone's just leading us down that road because they want to take us on a wild goose chase. Someone wants to get their kicks by taking us on that road. And we can't keep doing that. Otherwise, we'll be chasing our tail.
Right. And then there's also, the other scenario too, that just it can be bad for business. I mean, there's people's careers, in positions in a sheriff's department, that could be on the line if it comes out or is proven, that they were responsible for, a wrongful arrest and a wrongful conviction,
Right.
At the expense of pursuing the truth, Tim, and pursuing a more obvious other suspect or suspects.
And that can get expensive. I mean, different lawsuits against the municipality if they did arrest the wrong person. And we're at a point now where with Steven Avery, where imagine the implications if something were to happen that would prove otherwise. If it were found that Steven Avery did not murder Teresa Hallback, if it was not him that murdered her and burned her in a burn pit, and it was someone else. Imagine imprisoning a man, putting him behind bars, and taking away his life. And imagine the implications, the millions of dollars that would have to be paid out to him as a result of this, and the egg on the face, and the not only just the police that would have to save face here, but the judges that would have to save face as well. There's a lot in this that, I mean, the Wisconsin justice system would look pretty bad.
Right. And yeah, it's just a full stack of dominoes. I mean, from, all the way from, you could throw jurors in that, equation as well, a handful of prosecutors, CSI evidence technicians, just deputies. So there's so many people that would look foolish and be exposed, as being foolish, and incompetent in their jobs, if it was, if the world knew, if it was proven that Steven Avery was in fact innocent as well of Teresa Hallback's murder, just as he was innocent for Penny Bernstein's, rape back in the summer of 1985, Tim.
Let's do this, John. Let's take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about why the evidence surrounding Bobby Dassey has been suppressed. I want to talk about Bobby Dassey, who he is, what it was surrounding him that was so strong, and why it wasn't strong enough to be brought up and basically spotlighted to the courtroom, to the jury, to everybody, to say, hey, maybe Bobby Dassey is the guy we should be looking at here and not Steven Avery. Why isn't Bobby Dassey the guy? And the people who came forward and said, hey, I saw this guy doing some suspicious stuff. I don't think Steven Avery's the guy you should be looking at. Maybe it's this guy. When we come back, we'll talk with John Ferak about why Bobby Dassey is the guy that we should be looking at and not Steven Avery. The book is Wrecking Crew. The 5th anniversary is out right now with a special epilogue surrounding Catherine Zellner, Steven Avery's attorney, and a special epilogue with an interview with Steven Avery. I tell you, it's fascinating, folks. The book itself will take a deeper dive into why Steven Avery should be exonerated for this crime, why he should be out of jail, and why there should be other people put behind bars. The book is fascinating. It's a 5th anniversary edition with updated content and an exclusive new interview with Steven Avery. Wrecking Crew, Demolishing the Case against Steven Avery is available right now. We have a link in the description of this program. When we come back, more with John Ferak right after this on the best in true crime podcasting, True Crime Tuesday. Welcome back to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Our guest is author John Ferak. The book is Wrecking Crew, Demolishing the Case against Steven Avery. It's the 5th anniversary edition. It's got an exclusive interview with Steven Avery in the book. And I tell you, it's got some very interesting stuff in the interview. Again, we're not gonna spoil the interview with Steven Avery, of course, but some very interesting stuff in that. Some what's a good way of putting it, John? Some very
Intriguing, I would say unexpected
yes,
developments,
yes,
comments, remarks from him.
yes.
I mean, the one thing about Steven Avery, and this is with Zellner, Kathleen Zellner's attorney, always impresses upon me, and anybody else for that matter, but just that Stephen's a very simple, as much as people, have identified Brendan Dassey, Stephen's nephew, as being, intellectually challenged, developmentally disabled, and he certainly was taken advantage of by the Detective Wiegert and Fassbender in the interview they did of him at the school when he was 16 years old. But Stephen himself is a very simple individual as well. So, he's not a real deep thinker.
No.
If he is a deep thinker, he struggles to express himself. He's that way. He's just a real blue collar, kind of down to earth, typical Wisconsin, as far as, being a rugged person, gets his hands dirty, cuts up his hands, working on the vehicles at his parents' auto salvage yard, when he was free. But he tells it like it is. So, it's just, he's not really one to kind of craft, a story that really seems unbelievable. I mean, you just have to take it at face value as far as if, is he telling the truth or not? And, some people, could be offended by just even some of his comments about, even Bobby Dassey as well. So, yeah.
I get the feeling through your writings that he's kind of had enough. Like he's, and when I say he's kind of had enough, like he's putting the story out there and he's not wavering from it at all. Like, this is how it happened. And like you said, he's very no nonsense. This is how it happened. This is what went on. And he's like, I don't see why people don't see how it happened. Like there's
a way to put it, Tim. Yeah.
A level of frustration is what I'm trying to get at. Like there's almost a level of frustration on his end. Like, why don't people see the way it happened? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say that's definitely a fair way to put it. And, just from his standpoint, he's thought things through as far as, if he knows truthfully that he didn't do it, then he, like everybody else, wants to know then who else, then who is responsible for Teresa Halbach's murder, and, he's of the strong opinion that it had to be somebody also within the family or somebody that was connected to the salvage yard property, that it wasn't some random stranger that just, happened to see her on the side of Highway 147 with a flat tire, just something crazy scenario like that. So he's tried to do his own logical, deduction as well to figure out, who would be most likely responsible for killing her. And he, like his attorney, both are of the strong belief now in 2023, that his other nephew, Brendan's brother, Bobby, older brother, Bobby, is the most likely culprit in their eyes, Tim.
Let's talk a little bit about Bobby Dassey, because he, to say that he's the most likely suspect based on his actions and based on some of the things he did in the surrounding days would be pretty accurate. If you look at some of his actions having to do with some of his internet searches, first of all, are very bizarre. Tell us a little bit about some of his internet searches, first of all, and how disturbing they are.
Well, there was, and again, this is all information when I talked earlier about, as far as a fair trial, this was all evidence that the police and the prosecutor, Ken Kratz, had obtained. They had, when they had done search warrants and obtained, the computer records from the Dassey family house, and it was never turned over to Dean Strang, and Jerry Buting, Steven Avery's original lawyers. So Kathleen Zellner, to her credit, is the one that uncovered any and all this information from the Dassey computer. And again, a lot of it dealt with, real dark and disturbing, images that were found from the computer, as far as just real graphic images as far as, dead bodies, searches as far as violent means of death. There was also a folder that was created on the computer Zellner's computer expert, Gary Hunt, was never really able to determine the date that it actually was created, but it was a folder for, it had the name of Teresa Halbach in it. And there was one that also, had the word DNA in it. And what was also interesting too, Tim, is that Zellner was able to determine that Bobby Dassey's mother, Steven Avery's sister, Barb, had a couple different repairmen, show up and try to, reboot the computer, and there are certain time frames, in the general time frame as far as, leading up to Teresa Halbach's disappearance and murder and the investigation, where just the records, from the hard drive, just vanished and were taken off. So again, from the perspective as far as if you're looking at another person that may have had something to do with Teresa Halbach's disappearance, why in the world would anybody be, messing around and fiddling with the computer and removing, information from it, during the time frame, of, leading up to Teresa Halbach's, brutal disappearance and murder. So, and it came out, through other interviews with other family members in the Dassey household, that Bobby was pretty much the only one that used the computer. The other brothers were at work or at school in Brendan's case. So Bobby, no matter what, was the likely person using the computer. It's also important, I just remembered this too, Tim, is that some of the computer searches also refute Bobby Dassey's trial testimony, because he was the key witness for the prosecution that left the jury with the belief and impression that the last time Teresa Halbach was ever seen alive was that she was walking directly to Steven Avery's trailer.
Yeah.
And the person that testified to that was Bobby Dassey himself.
Yeah, and there was something to the effect of, if I remember right, Bobby Dassey claimed that he could see Steven Avery's front door from his trailer, and Steven said that's impossible. You can't see the front of his trailer from their trailer.
Right. And then you had other strange things, too, that happened, where he pulls in the day or two after Teresa Halbach disappears, grabs a dead deer carcass off the road, and brings it into his garage and strings it up. And there's photographs of that anybody and everybody listening could find on the internet. And I think there's one photo of that in my book, Wrecking Crew, as well. But the idea of doing that, you also had the strange testimony from him and, his stepfather, eventual stepfather, Scott Tadich, where they both testified that they were passing each other around 3 p.m. So basically within 15, 20 minutes of when Teresa Halbach was last seen alive around 2:35, 2:40-ish. But at 3 p.m., on a very lonely, country, I should say country, but a state highway out in the country that I've traveled many times during my time in Wisconsin, that supposedly these two pass each other, and wave to each other, recognize each other, going 50, 55 miles an hour too. So for them, it was a perfect alibi, that the defense was not able to break. But it by each of them identifying each other, it definitely took the heat off of each other as well, as far as having a culpability as far as her disappearance and murder. And probably, more importantly, too, is the dismemberment of her body.
Right. And tying the deer into the dismemberment, there was some questioning from law enforcement authorities to Bobby Dassey, and they asked about, did you claim the deer? Because when you find a deer on the road, or when you hit a deer in the road, more typically when you hit a deer in the road, especially in the Midwest, you have to claim it with the DNR. So when you hit a deer in the road, they'll ask you, do you want to keep the carcass? Which you have the right to, which seems weird, I know. But if you claim the carcass or want the carcass, you can take it and have it processed at a butcher. Or you can keep the carcass. And if here in the Midwest, if you're adept at it, you can keep the carcass, you could butcher the carcass yourself, and then take the meat in for processing, whatever you choose to do with it. in this case, but either way, it has to be tagged by the DNR. Everything has to be processed through the Department of Natural Resources. In this case, he claimed he didn't go through the DNR. He didn't do anything or tag it through the DNR. He just went out, found a deer, and took it home, which is weird. Mm-hmm. It's just bizarre.
Especially because part of his other testimony, Tim, was that he had gone out that afternoon as well, right around the same time that Teresa Hallbeck visited the Avery salvage yard property to take the photographs of the van that was for sale. So Bobby's story is that he took a shower, saw Teresa Hallbeck show up, saw her walk towards Steven Avery's property. Then he left and went deer hunting himself. Had no success, and then a day or two later is going to grab randomly just grab a dead deer carcass off the road, not know anything at all about, who hit it or whether it was diseased or not.
Right. That's the other thing.
Anything like that. Yeah.
You don't know if it died of a disease, especially if
chronic wasting was a big deal back at that point in time in Wisconsin, Tim.
Right. It was huge. And you don't want to pick up a deer that's died of chronic wasting because it's not edible. So what are you doing with it? Right. So,
right.
So then he claims, well, when they had asked him, well, what do you do with the deer heads? Well, if it's a trophy deer, you would probably want to mount it. But he claimed that they had burned the heads in the back in the burning pits.
The burning barrels for them. Burning
barrels. So there's his alibi, or what he thought was going to be his alibi. If he just went and picked up a random deer, that was going to get him out. So I think that's why he just went and got a random deer. This all just looks, you know what I'm saying, John? It all just looks very suspicious.
And we didn't even talk about or remind listeners yet, Tim, but one of the other key issues as far as pointing back to him, to Bobby Dassey of all people, is the fact that some of Teresa Hallbeck's bones were discovered in his, the Dassey burn barrels, not Steven Avery's burn barrel that was over by his garage, and on the other side of his red trailer. But the story from the prosecution obviously was, as everybody remembers, that Steven supposedly just threw her body, incinerated her in his burn pit, on his property, which is very, very close to his trailer, and as experts that Zellner brought in, testified to, would have basically, put the trailer up in flames and would have probably, blew up the propane tank as well, just based on the proximity, to that in the garage as well, the old rickety shack garage. But factually, Teresa's bones, some of her bones were in fact found in the Dassey burn barrel. So that begs the question that if Steven Avery did commit the crime, why would he, be fine? Why would he, leave some of the bones, in his burn pit, but drag a bunch of them, walk a couple hundred yards away and dispose some of them into his nephew's burn barrel. And then we get into this whole other, discussion, Tim, about the fact that a lot of the other bones were discovered, about a quarter to a third of a mile away at the Manitowoc County quarry property. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of strange questions, and that had all to do with Scott Tadich too, and some odd behavior that he has, which is detailed in this book as well. A very thorough job you did here, John, when it came to multiple players in this and some bizarre behavior. But it all comes back to Bobby, and it all comes back to his behaviors, not Steven Avery. It had nothing to do with Steven Avery's behavior. It had everything to do with Bobby Dassey's behavior and things that he was doing.
Right. And that becomes a key point as far as what's happened over the last few years, Tim, and certainly a key component of the direction I wanted to go with this book update. The fact that you have a handful of people that have never crossed paths at all in life, Tim, that all separately remembered seeing not Steven Avery or not Brendan Dassey, but they were sure that it was Bobby Dassey, to the point that they're willing to, sign a sworn affidavit under the pains and penalties of perjury. And they're not looking for their 15 minutes of fame or, any, media interviews or anything like that. But these are just people that felt strongly that they saw something, and in some of their cases, they did in fact go to the police, and let them know that they did see Bobby Dassey in the middle of the night prior to the discovery of Teresa Halbach's RAV4 vehicle being found on the edge of Steven Avery and the Avery salvage yard property, which everybody remembers from the original Making a Murderer series. But the fact that Bobby Dassey, of all people, would be seen pushing her vehicle in the middle of the night toward that eventual location, on the salvage yard property, several hours, about 4 to 6 hours before the vehicle actually is identified by Pam Sturm and her daughter, definitely raises, a lot of questions. And from Zellner's perspective, it definitely gives her the ammunition to point more definitively to Bobby Dassey as the most logical alternative suspect as far as committing the murder. Because again, Tim, why in the world in the middle of the night when everybody else is sleeping comfortably, including Steven Avery of all people, why is Bobby out along with a second person, and they're pushing a vehicle, Teresa Halbach's vehicle, the same person that is missing, had been murdered, and had been, dismembered, why, what would motivate him to push her vehicle, and why would he even be connected to her vehicle, to begin with? And yet, like I said, we've had several individuals that have come forward over the last 2 or 3 years, including one being a reputable newspaper delivery carrier who, last thing he wanted to do in the world, was make a name for himself and, and make waves of all things, pointing to the possibility that that there was an alternative scenario as far as what happened with Teresa Halbach's murder.
Very true. Kathleen Zellner now has been representing Steven Avery. I think we cited since 2016 or 2017, and she's been doing it pro bono. She hasn't been taking any money from Steven Avery to represent him. What drives her to continue up to this day to keep representing him? What drives this hope that he eventually can get an appeal?
Basically, she's convinced him that he's innocent, and she has a lot of years experience as far as in the wrongful conviction industry. In fact, her first big case was Larry Eiler, a serial murderer from Illinois and Indiana that she realized, when she got stuck with his defense, that he was in fact guilty of the crime. And she actually helped law enforcement identify all the people that he committed the murders of. So her perspective is that if she believes that somebody's guilty, she doesn't want anything to do with them. She will not help them. She won't get them off on a technicality. And she had several meetings and interviews with Steven Avery. She came away convinced that he was innocent, and also just her study of the case, scrutinization of the case, made her realize that the facts and the version of events that were presented at his trial and the way the evidence came together against him left her definitely convinced that that wasn't factually how Teresa Halbach met her death. So she's just been vigilant. And a lot of her other cases, too, it has taken several years. Ryan Ferguson's case, which was also the subject of a Netflix series a couple years ago out of Missouri, the murder of a newspaper sports editor over in Columbia, Missouri. But that case also took her several years and several failed appeals until she ultimately was able to win Ryan Ferguson's innocence and get him out. So it certainly has not gone the way she expected, but as kind of talked about at the beginning of today's segment, Wisconsin has been very adamant and opposed, it appears to me, with the notion of a third series on Making a Murderer just because of all the negative publicity and attention and humiliation that the series brought to them. Because 49 other states, and lawyers, judges, prosecutors, public defenders, and court officials have had a chance to watch how the Steven Avery and Brendan Dassey investigations and trials played out, and it definitely did not look good, in the eyes of the public and on America's justice system. And certainly Wisconsin didn't expect that to happen, 10, 15 years later, that this would all get, dragged back out into the public spotlight. So from my perspective, as I've read and studied the post-conviction opinions and decisions that were made over the last 4 or 5 years by the Sheboygan County judge that had been assigned to Steven Avery's case, Angie Suckowitz, her opinions oftentimes were just rehashing or regurgitating what the prosecution, the Wisconsin Attorney General's office had pointed out or refuted as far as, regarding Bobby Dassey and his role with that vehicle, to the point where she basically just said that you can't prove he may be pushing the vehicle. I'll acknowledge in my ruling that he was pushing the vehicle along with another person, but that doesn't mean that he was actually had the key to her vehicle and had driven it, prior to him pushing the vehicle. So just kind of ridiculous, real head scratching opinions. But that's what she just ruled this past August. And then out of nowhere, which kind of shocked the hell out of me, I was already in the process of working on this book update, Tim, that just out of nowhere, I get a text message or a phone call from Zellner just saying that Angie Suckowitz just announced that she's getting off the case, after handling this for, 7 or 8, 9 years. She decided because of, her high volume of caseload that this, that she needed, part ways and give the Steven Avery case up. So that shocked the heck out of me. And I think it also, at least for people that believe in Steven Avery and Brendan Dassey's innocence, at least gives them a new outlook on life, one that definitely has a rainbow, out in the distance rather than just storm clouds and thunderstorms and black clouds and a lot of rain and stuff like that. So at least there's the belief, Tim, is that this new judge, and he is a brand new judge. He just got elected in April of this year. It's a newly created bench position for Manitowoc County. And he also has a background as a Wisconsin state public defender, and he quit his job as a police officer early, after about 5 or 6 years as a police officer to pursue a career in litigation. So nobody knows how he's going to roll on the case, but the belief is that, hey, he's got to be better than Angie Suckowitz. So we'll see what happens.
John, when I read that, I said to myself, something's rotten in Denmark that Judge Suckowitz takes and issues a ruling that immediately says, because of my caseload, blah, 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 blah. To me, that is the move of someone who says, I don't want to recuse myself off the case. I want to give a ruling, but at the same time, I don't want people to dig into my background and try to get me to recuse myself off of a case before I make a ruling. So there's something in her background that says you can tie me to something somewhere in this case to get me off the case before I make a ruling. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a ruling. I'm going to get the hell out of here before you find some dirt on me. And then you want an appeal, take it up with somebody else before you find some dirt on me. That's what to me, that's what it stinks of.
Well, and I know from my time working in Wisconsin, on the investigative team for Gannett, from late 2012 through summer of 17. One of my colleagues that I worked with, Eric Litke, on his own had actually done previous stories just analyzing judges across Wisconsin. And one of the key measures for measuring competency of a judge is how often, the defense lawyers asking, for a different judge on a case. And she had a super high a ratio as far as, defendants and lawyers that just did not feel they could get a fair shake with her, or that she doesn't know the law, doesn't know case law. So he had already done stories on her before before anybody in the world was even paying attention to her, rulings and handling of the making a murder, the Steven Avery case. So I kind of knew that ahead of time that this was the judge that, Steven Avery definitely, you know, um, got stuck with the bottom of the barrel as far as having a judge that at least was open-minded, and you look at her rulings compared to the federal judges, the federal judge that wanted to and almost let Brendan Dassey out of prison. Mm-hmm. About 7 years ago. You study his ruling, and then you study the ruling in the Andy Colburn versus Netflix lawsuit, the ruling that came out earlier this year, and you're just blown away as far as that these are judges that studied the case inside and out. They were not about to be bullied or just repeating lines or statements that were put out there saying making a murder was just manipulating evidence and and fabricating evidence and ruining lives and reputations. So you had judges on the federal side that really did a deep dive and analysis, Tim, of the case versus her. And, so yeah, you're right. There's probably something there. And, from here on out, she's kind of in the background for the most part, and we'll see what happens. Now, this new judge, his name is Anthony Lambrick, and we'll see what's in store with him now.
That will be interesting to see what happens as far as an appeal goes with Lambrick, that's for sure. Want to bring up another special that's out there. I know you've seen a few episodes of it. The Conviction of a Murderer, I believe is what it's called. Candace Owens put out a special on the opposite side when it comes to Steven Avery. Basically falling under the, well, they got the right guy scenario. Why is Candace Owens misguided in what she put out, and why did she put out what she put out now? What was the purpose of putting this out, and who do you think was behind it? Was it necessarily Candace Owens that was behind it, or do you think it had other people behind it?
There were definitely other people behind it. In fact, I was kind of surprised in the last 6 months to a year, if even hearing her name being involved with it. I think they, we're looking for a headliner, and a prominent person, and she definitely would, fit that bill. But no, the Convicting of Murder documentary series had been in the works for many, many years. It was basically put together by people that felt embarrassed and humiliated and disagreed, with making a murderer, and also the accolades and all the national and international attention that it brought to the two primary documentarians that put it together. So I think jealousy was a key factor, and I also feel that they wanted to erase, kind of get out an eraser and just, take a pencil and kind of erase a lot of the memories that people had as far as, of the possibility and probability that there was false evidence, that the trial was stacked against Steven Avery and Brendan Dassey from the outset. More so, Steven Avery obviously was their focus, with Convicting of Murder. But like I said, yeah, it had been in the works for several years. But the key thing is that a lot of the Convicting of Murder series got into irrelevant, miscellaneous facts about Steven Avery and his youth and troubles. And that's the thing. All that stuff is true, but none of it was relevant or had anything at all to do with Teresa Halbach's disappearance. Issues about him and other people, getting drunk and high, or, and throwing a cat in a bonfire years ago, and other aspects of late night burglaries of local taverns and stealing food and stuff like that. Nobody says Steven Avery was a perfect angel growing up. He definitely had issues and problems, but like I said, a lot of the key components of the Convicting of Murder series really got into, irrelevant material that really had nothing to do, Tim, with Teresa Halbach's actual disappearance and murder. And I think Candace Owens, from what the limited that I watched of the series, she just kind of comes in really late in the game, really kind of green, and really doesn't know the history of the culture as far as with the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Office, as far as that they did have a long-standing history of corruption. And I know in one of the clips that I saw from her, she's talking about just George Floyd and and the whole scenario of law enforcement being crooked and she just kind of takes a perspective that that she's not even really open to the idea that there's corruption in the case. She just takes the position that everything's done on the up and up, and if you take that position on the up and up, then you're not going to be questioning things like like the key being found in Steven Avery's, bedroom on the floor after the police had already done 5 or 6 or 7 different searches, and the whole notion of shaking the cabinet drawers and the key falling out of it, that kind of stuff. So
yeah, I hear you there. Well, here's the question, and I guess the last question for you today, John, is this: with everything that's gone on and said, and the big fear that's hanging over Manitowoc County right now, is there a realistic chance that there is Making a Murder 3 out there, that it could be made? And has there been talk of it that you know of, and could it actually happen?
Well, I think that at least over the last several years, it had kind of been put on hold because there really was not anything noteworthy going on as far as kind of where the next set of episodes would take the case. But I think the events over the last year in particular, especially with the emergence of Bill Sawinski. I'm sorry, not Bill Sawinski, Tom Sawinski, the newspaper carrier, coming forward and identifying Bobby Dassey as pushing the vehicle. I think the change in the judge in the case, and then now we'll see what happens as far as Zellner appealing that ruling, to the Court of Appeals. So I would say it seems to me that now more so than 3 or 4 years ago, the possibility is stronger that we could see definitely a Making a Murder series 3. And I think we definitely would see one in the event that this new judge, Lambrick, or the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court, Tim, rules in Steven Avery's favor as far as granting him a new trial or just an evidentiary hearing in the case. So I think we'll kind of have to wait and see what happens, but as of right now, I would say it's definitely leaning a little bit more so back toward a possibility of a season 3 than it had been, 6 months or even a year ago.
Should even a hearing happen, or even an appeals trial happen, does this put egg on Manitowoc County's face? Is this kind of the be all end all, and does it tell Manitowoc County that reforms definitely need to happen, or do they continue with business as usual?
Yeah, see, I don't know on that one, Tim. That's a good question. I think that really just an ethical and conscientious judge or set of judges on an appeals court really should not be worried about or thinking about, if we rule in Steven Avery's favor because of the volume of questionable evidence or exculpatory information, that was withheld from, Zellner or, his original trial lawyers. They should just rule, treat him like he was Joe Jones, Jerry Smith, or Tom Johnson, just any other person, rather than analyze the case from if we rule in his favor, how is season 3 of Making a Murder going to play itself out, and how is this, the local courthouse in Manitowoc going to look, in that really shouldn't be a consideration, if the judges are noble and just. But obviously we know that not all judges are noble and just, and there certainly have been rulings that have gone against him over the last 5 or 6 years that were somewhat surprising given the information that Zellner had uncovered. Again, pointing to the exculpatory information and the evidence on Bobby Dassey's computer, and then now most recently with finding eyewitnesses that can identify Bobby Dassey as pushing the vehicle in the middle of the night, Teresa Halbach's vehicle. So we'll have to see what happens. But I would say it's certainly, Steven Avery's never been in a better position as far as having, a stack of cards as far as, multiple cards to show, the court and the judges as far as here's a piece of evidence, here's multiple pieces of evidence that point to somebody else as being responsible for Teresa Halbach's disappearance and murder and dismemberment rather than myself. And, and you would think that with all that information, that should at least get his foot in the door, Tim.
Yeah.
For an evidentiary hearing, not necessarily a trial, but at least for an evidentiary hearing. And then we'll see what would have to happen after Zellner gets a chance to present her side. And then the prosecution would have a chance to, rebut and or present its own case to a judge.
Absolutely.
In this case, Judge Lambrick. So.
Absolutely. The book is Wrecking Crew, Demolishing the Case Against Steven Avery. It is the 5th anniversary edition, which has a brand new interview with Steven Avery in it. It comes forward. You really bring the heat with this one, John. You have some very, very interesting stuff in it, including that interview with Steven Avery, some interesting new information in it. I encourage everybody to go get it. It's available via Wild Blue Press. We have a link in the description of this program, so you can go get that book. John, I want to thank you so much for appearing on the program today.
Thank you very much, Tim. It was great to be here.
It was great to have you, my friend. Appreciate you. Folks, it's time now for us to lighten things up a bit. It's time to bring in Beer City Bruiser and time for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals.
It's Crayon News story time.
What happened with this dude, Christ Bearer? I heard he cut his penis off and then jumped off a balcony.
Suspect pulls gun from butt, shoots twice at Denver police.
What is your emergency?
I need help.
And what's the problem?
I'm too high.
You're too high?
Yeah.
It's that time you've been looking forward to, the time that we've been looking forward to as well. Dumb Crimes, Stupid Criminals. In order to do so, we need a co-host. We bring in the co-host with the most, the BCB, the big cuddly bear himself, Beer City Bruiser. Bruiser, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Cruiser. How you doing?
I had a bit of the Cosell in me there. The Bear City Bruiser. Bruiser, how are you? I actually watched an old rerun of the Flip Wilson show with Howard Cosell on it.
Really?
Yeah.
We must have been on the same wavelength because I watched some of the Mrs. Bruiser was asking about the Globetrotters.
Yeah.
Harlem Globetrotters. So we went back and watched some of the Wild World of Sports with Howard.
With Howard Cosell.
Because remember, they'd always have the Globetrotters as a feature on there.
Yeah. Yep.
So we must have been on the same wavelength this weekend.
I don't know what it was. Yeah, but Howard was a terrible comedic actor.
Yeah, he was.
He read his lines the same way he did a sportscast. Very wooden. Terrible Cosell impression, by the way. But he was. They only featured him in the opening bit and the closing bit because he was so terrible. But it was good to see him.
Yeah, because we got on the Harlem Globetrotters kick. And I said, my first experience with them was with Howard Cosell. And she goes, who's that? I said, you don't know Howard Cosell. And she said, no. So we went down to ABC. It was ABC, right? Wild Water Sports.
Yeah.
And then the early Monday Night Football games. And she's like, this is terrible. I go, not for the 80s.
Oh, no. Howard Cosell was the man, especially on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
The only problem is he got in a little bit of trouble. Do you remember what one of his main trouble spots was?
Whiskey.
Oh, that was part of it. Yes.
But I think every broadcaster back then was drinking.
he and Frank Gifford liked to drink in the booth along with Dandy Don Meredith. But he said something about it was Tony Dorsett and Walter Payton, and people didn't understand where he was coming from. They thought it was a racial thing.
Oh, okay.
but he said, look at that little monkey run. And he didn't, you can't do that, right?
Yeah.
He claimed he didn't mean it racially because he was a good friend of Muhammad Ali.
Oh, so he used I have a black friend as to why he was saying it. Okay.
Right, but he claimed he didn't mean it in the racial sense. He meant it like you would talk about someone who's quick, fast, but it didn't help him. The network said you do well. You're kind of outdated, so they phased Cosell out.
Yeah.
Now Cosell's son works for the NFL.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, that's good.
And he appears on Colin Cowherd's program on a weekly basis. And he's actually quite knowledgeable about the game.
Which is good if you're going to be in that field. Mm-hmm. That's why I don't like Chris Collinsworth. He is not knowledgeable at all.
No. Oh, he was horrible.
He's the worst.
Yeah.
Sunday Night Football is almost hard to watch. I had to take extra edibles last night just to watch it, or the other night. He just would not get off Lamar Jackson's junk. It's like, yes, Lamar Jackson's good. Stop saying he can run this way, he can run that way, he can throw the football. No kidding. We've all seen Lamar Jackson play. Call the play that's on the field.
When you guys get time, and if you're a football fan, go to the Reddit threads about Chris Collinsworth making his own narratives on Sunday night. They're hysterical.
He does. Yeah, he's an idiot.
He lives in his own world.
Yeah, he's been factually proven wrong. Stuff he said on there has been wrong.
Yeah, it's funny. It's very funny. Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals. Boy, do we have a show for you today.
Okay.
It's very interesting. I hate to point the spotlight back at your industry, Bruiser, but I have a very interesting story to open up Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals today.
Is it the Liv Morgan story?
Yes, it is.
Ah, good for her. Yeah,
I figured I'd point it out because somebody's coming back to WWE soon.
Oh yeah.
She kind of busted herself. She made her own story in Orlando because everybody thought she was back home on the farm. Turns out
she was. She was on the farm, but she was going to the performance center to get back in ring shape.
Yeah. So she kind of outed herself. She's getting back in ring shape, evidently, to get back maybe by Rumble.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So, we'll start out with that. WWE wrestler Liv Morgan was arrested during a Florida traffic stop and faces marijuana possession charges. Her real name is Gianna Daddio, which is a better name than I think Liv Morgan is.
Yeah, I don't know why they changed her name. I've met her a couple times, and she pitched her first name just as Giovanna, and they said no. They said she doesn't look Italian enough.
What?
That was the whole thing. She's a Jersey girl. Come on.
Yeah. And she would have been, if they would have ended up keeping Enzo, which they didn't, obviously. Right. But if you would have paired her with that whole that was
the original plan, was her going with them. There's a couple NXT episodes you can watch where she's with them. Yeah, and that's when she's doing the I Live or whatever, that Jersey girl thing.
Yeah, that would have been amazing. She was arrested near a private housing facility called The Villages, which is kind of a posh and tony area of Orlando.
And I'm assuming that's where a lot of the WWE superstars live.
I think so, yeah.
Because it's close to the Performance Center, but it's I don't want to say it's a gated community, but it's real hard to get into unless you know somebody.
Yeah. She was arrested Thursday in Central Florida, accused of felony marijuana possession, according to News 6 partner WJXT. 29-year-old Daddio, which I love the last name, by the way. I just think it's the greatest last name ever, was arrested after she was seen erratically driving her Jeep near The Villages. That's according to Villages News. They have their own news department.
Their own news department. Look at that. That's a bougie little neighborhood.
That is. A Sumter County Sheriff's deputy said they saw Daddio cross over street lines several times, according to an arrest report obtained by Villages News, and smelled marijuana when they got close to her Jeep. She was smoking and driving and the smoking.
And it's funny. I don't know if you've seen the there's a meme of her already, but there's a couple comments on the TMZ report where they say she was in Green Bay the week before because she was at the Packers game.
Yeah.
Supporting the Packers. And they said, oh, she must have taken a little trip to Michigan where it's legal recreationally. Because it's not legal in Florida. It's not legal in Wisconsin. And I don't think it's legal where her farm is.
Well, there's an interesting little thing at the end of the story I'll throw at you here, because this is quite popular in Florida. So something tells me there was a side trip while she was there, or while she's there. The deputy said they found marijuana in a pink fuzzy bag in the vehicle. That's very East Coast Jersey-like.
Yeah.
And vape pen containing an oil-like substance, which you can get in a lot of different areas of the country. She was booked, and probably in Michigan, that little side trip you're talking about.
Yep.
She was booked at the Sumter County Detention Center and released after posing $3,000 bond. The wrestler, who said she lives in Spring Hill, faces charges of marijuana possession, not more than 20 grams. That's a little much. And possession of a synthetic cannabinoid. Now, Florida is known for synth marijuana.
Yeah, that's the Delta 8 or whatever, Delta 9.
Yeah, they also call it cat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it is plentiful down there. In fact, we do a lot of stories of people who get high on cat and go nuts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The other thing is it's not detectable by drug tests at WWE.
Well, now WWE did their drug test, and they allow marijuana now.
They do. They do. But
yep,
if you want to
incorporated that.
If you want to come up clean, you do this synth marijuana.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they realized that with their drug testing that guys do the marijuana instead of doing the opioids. They do the THC or the CBD. Because even if it's CBD, you still test positive for THC. Because CBD still has THC in it.
Yes, it has a small amount. Yeah.
Yep. So you'll still test, like we did with the Lumi gummies. They still test positive.
Yeah.
So WWE just got rid of it. Said THC is legal. You can have that in your system. We get it. We're more worried about the steroids and the opioids and all that. So, and as far as I know, and from my sources within, she's not in any trouble with WWE.
Nor should she be. Although, you might have to get the little slap on the wrist for driving while.
Well, we don't know if she was impaired.
The way it sounds from this article, she had the possession charges, but they were smelling it while she was driving. So,
yeah,
whether they drew blood at that time or not, it's unknown. They haven't said.
Right. So I think they're going to wait for that to come out. She'll get a slap on the wrist if she gets a DUI, but she's not losing her job over this.
No. By all means.
This isn't like 87 when Hacksaw was caught with Iron Sheik in New York, and they were in the middle of a feud,
Right. And keep in mind, folks, that it's not Vince McMahon's company anymore. This is a whole new company and a whole new WWE. So it'll be interesting to see how they tackle this too.
Yeah, that's the curious thing, because there's still changes going on. I know the wellness policy that WWE enforced after the Benoit tragedy is still in effect, but I know they want to change it because they want to make it universal between the WWE superstars and the UFC superstars. Mm-hmm. So that way it's just one test given to everybody instead of, okay, we have to test XYZ for the WWE guys and, ABC for the UFC guys.
Yeah. So it's a little different time over there now. So it's kind of an interesting little deal. So
it'll be interesting how this all plays out. I just know from the people that I've talked to, she's not in the doghouse. She's not in trouble. She's got to deal with the court issues on her own, but other than that, as far as a WWE stance, I don't think she's in any trouble.
Interesting. I just thought it was interesting that she outed her return.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting indeed. Because people have been asking, well, where is she? Shouldn't she be back soon? And everybody kept talking about, well, when is she coming back? Are we going to see her on Raw this week? Are we going to see her on SmackDown? Are we going to see her here, there? When is she going to make this appearance? And everybody thought, well, Royal Rumble. She's getting ready, folks.
Yeah. And everyone's got to realize, too, when you come back, it's for instance, I got cleared from my doctor to return to the ring in September. But my actual return to the ring wasn't until November. And that's because I needed that 2 months to get into a school, get into the ring, to knock off what we call ring rust, to build back up my cardio, to get back into a shape where I would be presentable to the fans, Mm-hmm. So she's might have been cleared for a while, but like you just said, she outed herself because she's in Orlando, and that's where their performance center is, and that's where the rings are.
Yep.
With the old guys, like the legends, like an Undertaker, a Shawn Michaels, they would ship them a ring.
Yeah.
And then you could have the ring for 2 months to work, and then you make your return. You get you give the ring back. I think the Undertaker, he permanently has a ring, I believe.
And they'd send you a guy too. I mean, you'd have
Dr. Tom Pritchard would go. Yep. Or I know when Brock Lesnar was coming back, a friend of ours, Joe Henning, he was the guy.
Yep. So he would go train with Brock, and it was kept on the hush.
Yep.
So,
And you're getting paid the whole time.
That's right. It's kind of a nice gig if you can get it. That's for sure.
I in fact was when Ace Steel was there for a little bit. After he tore his ACL, they sent him to Harley's. And I was the guy that Ace trusted to get in the ring. So I was in the ring with Ace Steel almost every day, rehabbing his knee so he could make the return to well, it was OVW at the time.
Oh, wow. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Interesting indeed. Let's move on. Here's a guy who will never pose shirtless in a ring, Bruiser.
Okay.
Turns out a New York City mobster who posed shirtless in a pool while on the lam has no regrets about a damning photo at his sentencing.
Oh, you gotta take time for yourself when you're on the lam.
I guess, there's
so much stress with worrying what's around the corner and who's coming at you. Is that person looking at you funny? You just gotta de-stress.
Yeah, well, there's also you could buy a weight set too. You could maybe lay off the gabagool. You could there's other things. The reputed city mafioso who infamously posed for the camera shirtless. I have a picture here for you, Bruiser, so you can get an idea of just how buff this guy is. Let me see. I'm going to get rid of the video there so you can see him in his glory. There he is. I don't think he's so bad.
Oh, gosh.
No. But he was ashamed of this photo.
Well, I would be too.
Would you say he's dad bod extra?
I would say he's diabetic number 2. You know what though? He looks like, when I picture a mobster in my head, he has a mobster body.
He's Tony Soprano.
Yeah, with a few extra. He's a retired Tony Soprano.
Okay, there you go. That's a good way to put him. The reported city mafioso who infamously posed for the camera shirtless in a swimming pool that was his first problem, while on the lam, said Tuesday he has no regrets about the photo, even though it helped him or put him in prison. Alleged Colombo crime family mobster, 68-year-old Ralph DiMatteo, was sentenced to 3 years behind bars by Brooklyn federal judge Hector Gonzalez after pleading guilty to extortion, conspiracy, and money laundering from 2020 to 2021 for threatening a union official in July. When asked after sentencing if he had any second thoughts about posing for the camera while shirtless in a pool in Florida, DiMatteo, wearing a charcoal suit with sneakers, he's a fashionable one, scoffed. Of course he did.
Oh, of course.
He said, "Why? It was a great picture." Deadpan DiMatteo, who flaunts his burly, hairy chest in the snap. I'll give him this. He has a nice, hairy chest.
He does. And he's got the gold necklace. He's got the pinky ring. I want to know what the guy in the background's thinking.
No idea. He had his eyes closed. He kind of looks like Ralph Cifaretto. He's got the white mane. He's got his eyes up. He's getting a little sun. He's getting a little vitamin D there. The reputed wise guy, who prosecutors say was the Klan's consigliere, had flown to the Sunshine State a day before federal prosecutors charged 13 co-defendants with the major crimes related to the infiltration of a Queens labor union. But DiMatteo's cover was blown after his son posted the pool photo to Twitter, where the alleged mobster appears shirtless and half submerged in a swimming pool with a gold crucifix hanging from his neck. I got to tell you, this thing looks like it's worth a lot of money too.
So they don't practice in running from the law. Don't post on social media. That's in my head. That's number one. Hey, all right, I'm running from the law. I'm not running far. I'm only going to Florida.
Yeah,
but no pictures. Don't post anything online. You have no idea where I am. Yeah, that's the first thing I'm doing.
Hey, Junior, here's the deal. Keep it off the internet, all right? He's like, sure thing, Pop. I ain't going to put it on the internet. It's no problem. Hey, how about I twist? I'm going to put it on Twitter. How's that sound?
Yeah, sure,
like,
go to Twitter. No one talks on Twitter. Go ahead.
That's right.
Please don't look at Twitter.
Just don't put it on the internet. You could put it on the Twitter. I don't care. Just don't put it on the internet. So sure enough, he does, and he gets busted. By the way, he did surrender a day later. DiMatteo's lawyer, Gerald McMahon, no relation, had asked the judge to be lenient with his client's sentencing, in part because DiMatteo is old-schooled and that he was ready to take the blame. Oh.
And he doesn't, from the judging of that picture, doesn't have a lot of time left on this earth.
No. He's lived a good life. Mr. DiMatteo did wrong, McMahon said. He took a plea. He's taking his medicine. He wants it to be on him. He's doing his time. McMahon said DiMatteo will hopefully be aging out from his alleged crime family business, but prosecutors who were seeking a sentence of 46 months in prison weren't convinced the reputed wise guy was going to stop from his ways.
So do I got this right? They're saying just let him retire from the mob. He won't do this anymore.
Yeah, just let him age out. Just let him go into retirement softly.
Like he's close to retirement. Let him get his 401k, and then he'll be good.
Yeah, just let him retire to Florida. He'll be nice and tanned and.
What a great defense team.
Yeah. Being a member of the Colombo crime family is a lifetime oath, Brooklyn federal prosecutor Michael Gibaldi, adding that aging out won't happen.
You don't retire from the mob.
Yeah, he's like, we think we know how this thing works. DiMatteo, known as number 3 by other Colombo clan members, was indicted along with other reputed Colombo leaders, including then boss Andrew Mush Russo. The nicknames aren't as good as they used to be.
No.
Mush.
Yeah.
You know, it used to be the Hitman. It used to be Knuckles.
Two-Tone.
Yeah, Two-Tone, Knuckles. The Jawbreaker. Yeah, Fingers, the Jawbreaker. Mush doesn't quite do it. Yeah. Then boss Andrew Mush Russo, who died in April of 2022. That's why they call him Mush, evidently, because he's bone soup right now. He died while awaiting trial, by the way. And alleged Colombo underboss Benjamin the Claw Castellazzo. There you go, the Claw.
See, the Claw. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the mob still a thing in the 2000s?
It is, but it isn't as prevalent.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
It's not as impressive as it used to be.
It still works the unions, though.
It does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because when you hear the name like John Gotti, you're like, oh my gosh, like that's a mobster. You hear Mush and you're like,
Gotti was the last big one. He was the last big boss. Yeah. So Benjamin the Claw Castellazzo pleaded guilty earlier this year. DiMatteo worked together with reputed Colombo crime family captain Vincent Ricciardo. There we go. To collect monthly payments of only $2,600 from the union official.
That's it?
That's it.
Well, we're in a recession.
Yeah, that's true. Only identified as John Doe number 1 during the 19-year scheme, according to prosecutors. I almost feel like they should let him go. I mean, that's not much.
No, it's a slap on the wrist.
It is. Ricciardo pleaded guilty and is scheduled to be sentenced on January 10th. The judge ordered DiMatteo to pay $280,890 in restitution to the victim of the case and allowed him to surrender on January 15th. The mob ain't what it used to be.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It is not.
Can you imagine this guy right here, Bruiser, between you, me, and the listeners, this guy right here going, give me my $2,600.
You know what? I hate to say this, but I can picture you and I. We're out at an Italian restaurant coming up with a format for the show, and that's the guy that owns the restaurant.
Yeah.
Hey, how's the pasta? Cruiser, how's that pasta treating you? Is it good? You need get Cruiser some more pasta.
No, the gravy today, I got to tell you, is no good. It's no good. It's a little salty. Could be better. Hey, by the way, here's $10. That's, oh no, wait, I'm going to bump it to $26. That's 1/100th of what you make on the mob side of this deal.
Yeah.
I feel a little sorry for you these days. Just saying. By the way, we got a lot of stories from listeners this week. I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of who contributed this week. I feel like this is the pledge drive for PBS now. I want to say thank you to Jim McKeeman, who contributed. Tony, of course, came through big this week. Brandon came through big this week. And, of course, Eric came through big this week, as well as Tom. And, Tom comes through big as well. And all the boys coming through big this week. So I want to thank you guys. This one is from Minnesota. And is unusual, yes. We do a lot of MRIs up here. We're a big medical community.
Yeah, you are. You have the Mayo Clinic up there.
Yeah, we got the Mayo up here, University of Minnesota. The one thing they never tell us, they don't have to tell us, please don't bring your firearm in with you in the MRI machine.
Yeah, you don't want a metal gun by your giant magnetic tube.
Yeah, they probably should post a sign now. Especially in Minneapolis, leave your weapon outside the MRI tube, or maybe leave it outside the room. A newly filed report by the Food and Drug Administration describes an incident. Actually, this isn't a Wisconsin hospital. It was just outside of Minneapolis, where a woman was shot in the buttocks after bringing a gun into a room with an MRI machine. Whoops. According to the FDA, the 57-year-old woman had brought the concealed handgun into the room. The gun was attracted to the magnet of the MRI and fired a single round.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Which then hit her in the right buttock.
Good, she deserves it.
Wow.
Why do you need a gun in a hospital? That's the last place you need a gun.
Because somebody else could be packing?
Sure.
I don't know. The injury was small and superficial, and she was healing well shortly afterwards. Well, thank Jesus for that.
Well, if she needed an MRI to find out how deep it went, she's right there.
That's true, yeah. She had been through a screening process in which she was asked if she had any objects containing iron. So then, of course, she answered no to all questions.
Never heard the phrase packing iron?
Yeah, I guess not. The incident.
Oh, no, my gun's steel. I'm good.
Oh, yeah.
Steel gun.
I'm packing steel, not iron. Let's go. Yeah. Let's fire up the MRI machine. Let's do this.
I'm bougie. Look at this gun. Come on.
The incident happened back in June, but was just recently reported to the FDA, evidently out of embarrassment. I don't know. My God. Speaking of shooting people in the lower regions, we go to Florida because why not?
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. A DeBerry man is accused of shooting his neighbor in the leg with a shotgun.
Well, that happens.
You neighborly stuff in Florida. You come over to borrow a cup of sugar, and if they don't have it, you shoot them in the leg. It's just how it works in Florida.
I don't have a full cup. I only have a half cup. Well, I got to shoot you in the leg. Which one do you want? Right or left? Come on.
Well, my Kool-Aid's not going to taste the same, but maybe it will with your sweet, sweet blood. 69-year-old John Baker faces charges of aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. We go to DeBerry, Florida, where a 69-year-old DeBerry man was arrested after he shot another man in the leg with a shotgun. This, according to the Volusia County Sheriff's Office. Deputies say they responded to the shooting at 9 Cunningham Road shortly after 6 p.m. last week. Upon arrival, John Baker told deputies he shot the victim in the leg with a shotgun. According to a news release, deputies found the victim, a 45-year-old man, lying at the end of the road, bleeding from a shotgun wound to his ankle. Now that would hurt.
Ow. Right in the ankle. Ow.
Yeah.
I'm thinking thigh. Thigh's okay, but an ankle. Ooh.
Yeah. The man who lives nearby told deputies that he was searching the area for a bike that has been repeatedly stolen out of his yard. Not a good reason to shoot somebody.
Yeah. And everyone that's shooting people are old. This guy's 69. You had a 57-year-old bringing a gun in the hospital. Why do the old people feel they need to be armed right now?
Probably because they can't fight.
Probably.
I mean, they're going to get beat up if they try and put the dukes up. So they're just like, you know what? I'm bringing this gun.
They're taken from, what is that, Indiana Jones and the Lost Ark, where the guy has the sword. Wah, wah, wah. Boom.
Boom. You settle it real quick, I guess. I don't know. Deputies said while searching for the bike, the victim found a dirt path and ended up near an RV at 9 Cunningham Road, where Baker came out with a shotgun. According to the release, the man said Baker accused him of vandalizing or burglarizing his property and began to chase him. The victim said he ran away in fear with Baker in pursuit. Baker told deputies that he shot the victim because he heard him trying to break into his RV. But deputies found the shotgun shell about 150 yards away from the RV. They also noted that there were no signs of an attempted break-in or any recent damage to the RV. So it was all in this guy's head, Bruiser.
I bet you the guy was just knocking to say, hey, did you see this bike? And the old guy went, oh, get off my lawn! Get off my lawn!
Deputy said Baker faces charges of aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. He was booked overnight at the Volusia County Branch Jail.
Good.
So there's that. I found the perfect gang for Kirk Cousins to join in the off season.
Oh, it's the Achilles blown out gang.
Yes, the blown out Achilles gang.
Him and Aaron Rodgers.
Should he decide to turn to a life of crime, I think
he would be the worst. You think he's a bad quarterback? Imagine him as a criminal.
He'd turn himself in every time.
He'd just have to have his wife do everything.
Yes.
And then him take credit.
She'd have to rob Coles on her own.
Yes.
Yeah, he'd never go with. He'd have a guilty conscience. We go to Colorado, Bruiser, where Colorado thieves asked for a lesser charge because the items they stole were on sale.
That's smart. We were stealing clearance items. Can we get a clearance sentence?
A pair of thieves from Colorado had a bold argument for why they should get a lesser charge. I have to thank our listeners again for this story as well. The items they stole were on sale.
You know, I got to give them credit. I wouldn't have thought of that. That's amazing.
I would have. 50-year-old.
Normally the sentence 25 years to life, but can we do, because it's on sale, can we cut that down to 15?
Yeah. Let's do 12, shall we? Because really, these were clearance items, Your Honor, and nobody was going to buy them. 50-year-old Michael Green and 37-year-old Byron Bolden were formally sentenced this month after receiving convictions for retail theft at a Kohl's department store in Parker, Colorado.
Of course.
It's been rumored that that's where old Kirk and Julie went when they played the Denver Broncos. The department store dubbed the pair the KitchenAid Mixer Crew. Julie's in that gang, right?
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, she is. Due to their alleged association with other retail thefts. So they're the KitchenAid Mixer Crew.
That's like being up there with the Wet Bandit crew.
Would you just automatically go run into a brick wall if you were part of the KitchenAid Mixer Crew? I
would, because if I get sent to prison and someone finds out I'm part of that crew, I'm going to have to bake a really good cake. Or I'm going to let everybody down. I got cred here. You know what they're going to say? They're going to say, well, if you bake a cake, I'm sure you toss a good salad. Both men were arrested after being identified from surveillance footage. Most notably, defense lawyers for the two men suggested to a jury that their clients should only face a lesser misdemeanor charge because some of the items they stole were being offered on sale, quote unquote, according to the district attorney's office presiding over the case. That's why they waited until after Black Friday. That's why they waited for the holidays. That's right. Yep. The argument was focused on the Colorado law, which stipulates theft under $2,000 as a misdemeanor offense, with theft between $2,000 and $5,000 classified as a Class 6 felony. The documented value $1,094.98. But we're playing the prices right here, Bruiser. I can see Drew Carey in the courtroom. The actual retail price is less than that because it was on sale. Just because an item is on sale doesn't mean it's free to steal, and these defendants now get to think about this lesson in jail and prison, the district attorney, John Kellner, said in a press release. Retailers in our community are fed up with theft, and my office will actively prosecute these offenders. You go, Kellner. I don't know. Some of those prices are steals. We got a really good... I'm going to the Packer-Carolina game coming up. Yeah? And we got our tickets for a steal. Like, I felt bad buying these tickets from this guy. What was it, like $9? No. We got club seats. Yeah. Silver club seats. $5? No. $2? Silver? No, think about it. This is with the free parking, special entrance, covered seating, X to 3 inches in each seat. Person comes and talks to you. Normally one seat is $750 for just one of these seats.
$2.
I got both for $300.
Really?
Both seats.
Wow.
I felt so bad. That's not even half price of one.
Wow.
That's more than buy one, get one. Like I should probably go to jail and have Drew Carey standing there next to me.
That's retail theft right there. Holy cow.
But it's the Panthers. The only reason we're going is the Packers are there,
Yeah. Well, but still. And it's not a guaranteed victory either. The Falcons fell yesterday.
Yeah. Well, I blame weather for that. It was nasty out here. But still, yeah.
How nasty was it in Carolina?
Oh, it was bad. It was wet. Wet and windy and cold.
It was 60 and windy?
No, it was 45 windy and raining.
Oh, 45.
I mean, right now we're at 48, but it's sunny. We're still in a drought.
Ask me how cold it is in Minneapolis.
How cold is it in Minneapolis there, Cruiser?
It's 15 degrees. It was cold in Carolina, for crying out loud. Yeah, that's why Atlanta couldn't play. Could be they just had a crappy day. Atlanta couldn't play because it was 45 and windy. Oh, you poor babies. Oh, anyways,
they had less than 1,000 people at the stadium yesterday. Tickets were going for as low as $5.
Less than 1,000 people?
Yep, you can get tickets for $5.
Whoa. It's going to be like that pretty soon in Minnesota. Yay. We'll be able to see that Lions game for about $2.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, we're talking bargains at Kohl's. So this John Kellner, the district attorney, claims that retail theft is reportedly rising in the U.S. in recent years, but many reports relied on faulty data. The National Retail Federation recently retracted a claim that organized retail crime accounted for nearly half of the shopping industry's $94.5 billion losses due to shrink in 2021 and was up by 26.5%. Retailers such as Walgreens have admitted exaggerating the issue of shrinkage. Yeah, there aren't a lot of people stealing from Walgreens.
No.
You can't steal a lot of penny candy and $2 sunglasses.
I'm saying all the good stuff's behind plexiglass and locked up and all that.
That's right. Which includes all inventory lost due to theft, fraud, or damage. Both Green and Bolden were convicted of felony theft. Green was sentenced to 15 months in prison. Bolden was sentenced to days in jail with credit for time served and 18 months of probation. Kohl's did not immediately respond to a request for comment, although they said they'll make up the profit with 2 shopping trips by the cousins. There you go.
We called in our champion.
That's right. He's on the bench for the Vikings, but he's in full play for us. We don't give him Kohl's cash because we're losing profit that way. Just saying. Let's move on. 2 suspects are in custody after a getaway vehicle is stolen during a robbery at a check cashing business in Commerce City. Yes, I got this one from a listener too.
Okay, robbery, getaway vehicle. Okay, I'm on board. This is great. Yeah. This is karma.
Yeah, it is. And that's exactly what it is.
Whatever arresting officer this is, and I don't know the story, you're going to read it in a second, but if they arrest these people, that officer is the luckiest officer in the world for solving 2 crimes at once.
Yeah, he is, right? The Commerce City Police Department says 2 suspects are in custody, while 1 remains on the loose after a robbery was reported at a check cashing business. The department says around 11 a.m. on Saturday, 3 masked men robbed the high-low check cashing in the 7200 block of Monaco Street, and that's when officers arrived on the scene and infiltrated the business. Officers reportedly chased down and arrested 2 of the 3 suspects involved in the incident. There were also no reported injuries. It was also reported that the group of suspects robbed the business. A 4th criminal stole their getaway vehicle, which is believed to be already stolen. I don't know how you classify that, but
All I know is when I'm getting that car back, I'm selling it really quick because it was stolen twice.
In baseball, that's a double steal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I know. The department has yet to release a description of the vehicle, probably because they can't find it. Anyone with additional information on the incident is encouraged to contact Detective Garcia, who's sitting there stumped, at 303-227-7147.
Like I said, that's the luckiest cop in the world.
He just has crimes coming to him. It's kind of funny. Bruiser, I know you have a way of taking care of the pups.
Yes.
A lot of times when we're recording, you put them in cages.
No, they're free in the house. I'm in an office.
That's a lot more freer than some University of Florida scientists take care of their kids when they're at work.
I'd rather put my kids in there sometimes than the pups.
Well, that's what these scientists did when they went to work. They put their kids in cages. Probably not the best form of daycare. No. You heard me right, folks. Some University of Florida scientists are arrested after allegedly putting their kids in cages while they went to work.
You don't do that.
No.
Don't do that at all.
That's not good parenting. I don't know if they know that or not. Florida police said the children were 6 and 2 years old.
Yeah, you definitely don't do that with that age.
No. 2 scientists who work at the University of Florida were arrested Friday after allegedly putting their kids in cages while they went to work.
Well, they can go to a cage now.
Yeah, exactly. 35-year-old Dustin Huff and 31-year-old Urizi were accused by the Gainesville Police Department of leaving their children home in small cages while they were at work. My God. The couple allegedly showed police the homemade cages as if it were all normal when officers searched their property.
It's not normal.
No.
This is where you need a license to be a parent.
I think so, yeah. I'm not used to walking in and seeing a cage where children are kept at night and, of course, went home alone, said Gainesville Police Sergeant John Pandick. I would be shocked.
Yeah.
According to the Miami Herald, the couple sometimes worked overnight hours. The cage, according to the outlet, consists of a large unsanded wooden enclosure made of pressure-treated 2x4s that appeared to be a makeshift cage, an arrest report stated. One of the children allegedly told police he would sometimes be in the cage from the time he came home from school until he had to leave the following morning at 7 a.m.
What?
Yeah.
Come on. That's just terrible.
One of the children told a school employee that he didn't want to go home as he'd be put in a cage by his parents.
Yeah, I never want to go home.
Where was the school in this?
Yeah, why didn't the school raise alarms and call the police?
Officials at the University of Florida placed the couple on administrative leave. They should have probably done a little more than that. They were charged with aggravated child abuse and child neglect. The children ages 6 and 2 were placed in the custody of vetted family members.
Make sure they don't have cages.
Yeah, please. Make sure you do that before you give them to family members. Fox News Digital reached out to the University of Florida for comment. They have not gotten any as of yet. Let me show you a picture of these 2 bumbleheads. They supposedly are smart enough to be scientists at the University of Florida.
Hey, you can be book smart, not street smart. Like I said, you need a license to be a... And they're scientists. Why wouldn't you bring your kids with you to at least a daycare at the lab or bring them to work with you so they can learn something? Like, there's not a lot of scientists in the world.
No. You should at least be smart enough to find a daycare.
Yeah. And I'm sure whatever lab they work in probably has an on-site daycare.
Who goes, I know, let's just put them in cages?
Idiots. Like I said, I don't like putting my dogs in cages. I do when I leave the house for long periods of time, but as soon as I'm back, I take them out and play with them, let them know they're good. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a punishment. It's just,
right.
I don't want my house torn up.
Yeah.
But with my children, like 6 and 2, like I'd take them. We had a daycare we took them to.
Yeah.
And if I couldn't do it, I'd call my sister or, call a relative.
Unbelievable. Let's move on. I'm sure there have been a few people who collect Pokemon cards that you've wanted to beat mercilessly about the Head and Shoulders.
everybody that collects Pokemon cards.
No, come on, Bruiser.
I hate Pokemon.
No, my brother collects Pokemon cards. I mean, there have been times I wanted to beat him mercilessly about the head and shoulders, but...
Pokemon fans are worse than Philadelphia Eagle fans.
No, come on,
Dallas
Bruiser.
Cowboy
Come on
fans.
now.
Or
Actually,
Chicago Cub fans.
I when I was managing Starlog, I met quite a few Pokemon fans that were quite nice.
Oh, the worst fandom out there.
They're pretty passionate.
They are shocked if you don't know a Pokemon. I'm sorry. I don't. Pokemon was beyond my... It started after I'd already grown up and it was gone. And it came before my kids got into stuff. So...
Now, Magic the Gathering fans are beatable, not the Pokemon fans.
I put them both in a bag and hit them against a tree.
Oh, come on, Bruiser. No, it's yeah. But anywho, a man is accused of stealing Pokemon cards and then beaten by a Westerville officer during an arrest.
Good.
No, not good. Not good, Bruiser. We don't encourage officers beating suspects.
Where's his Pokemon coming to save him there, huh? Mr. Charizard, Pikachu, Squirtle, whatever.
Hey, you know quite a few of them for not liking them.
That's because I was forced to. Ask me anymore. I know Charizard.
Yep, Charizard. You named
Pikachu.
Squirtle. Yep, you know Pikachu. Yep.
I know Squirtle.
Yep.
And the only reason I know Squirtle is because it was shown to me in a pornographic way.
Wow.
And then there's the Pokeball, right? You put them in your testicles or something like that?
No, you don't put them in your testicles. That's how you catch them. You catch them in a Pokeball. Yeah.
So you enslave these things. I'm supposed to be excited for people enslaving free animals.
No, it's like their little home, and then you unleash them when it's time to battle. Do you know who one of the keepers is?
So I am capturing these things from their wild life. I'm imprisoning them and forcing them to fight.
No.
It's other ones.
No. It's a symbiotic relationship. It's like it's not master servant.
Like a master and slave relationship to me.
It's like
sounds
friends.
like Roman times all over again.
No. It's like friends. You're nice friends.
I don't make my friends fight. I don't keep them in a ball.
No. The ball is their home.
I'm going to post on social media just to get the backlash.
No.
My thoughts on this is I feel like stirring something up online.
First you're warring against foreign nations, and now you want to
I'm not warring against foreign. I'm warring against slavery. You're going into the wild because Pokemon Go was a big thing during the pandemic.
I have a friend who owns a game store, so
I have a friend that works at a game store, and you know, cool, they make the money on Pokemon. Yeah. But when you come down to it, that's the fire. You're enslaving these things and forcing them to fight a war they don't want to fight.
No, you're not.
Like, they're probably in their Pokeball going, please don't choose me, please don't choose me, please don't choose me.
No.
And then they get released. I choose you. No. And if I remember correctly, it's like a survival. It's to death, right? They fight to the death.
I don't know if it's to the death every time. I can't speak for. I don't know.
You can't speak for the slave owners?
No, not slave owners. No, Ash is not a slave owner. He's a Pokemon master.
A master.
No, not even a master. No, not a master. Not a master. Pokemon friend.
Sure.
I've said too much. Anyway, let's get back to the story. A video was captured Sunday night showing a Westerville police officer or officers beating and tasing a suspect in a theft involving Pokemon cards. The incident began at 10:28 p.m. when an employee at the Meijer at 100 Polaris Parkway reported a theft in progress, according to a redacted Westerville Division of Police report. The suspect is 35 years old, by the way, 35-year-old Ernest Fields. He was accused of bagging up $679.59 worth of Pokemon cards.
That guy needs to get a job.
And trying to remove security tags on the products and ignoring a manager's attempt to stop him from leaving the store. After exiting the Meijer, the manager told the Westerville police that Fields got in the front passenger seat of a red Chevrolet Impala in the parking lot, according to the report. An officer whose name was redacted from the report then notified other responding police that he had found the suspect. It wasn't hard. He had a big bag full of Pokemon cards, and he was going, yay, yay, yay.
I got them all. Look at this. I hope I get my Pikachu gold.
Actually, can you do a voice for this guy?
Oh, yeah. He is definitely high on meth. Why is he so beat up?
Because the officers went to town on this guy.
They did. They're like, you stupid slave owner.
No, they didn't say that.
You're the worst kind. You didn't even buy your Pokemon. You stole them. You're a poacher.
You're a poacher. No. Officers identified by last names Williams and Mueller, both wrote in their reports that they arrived at the mire. Fields had gotten out of the car and was running from the unnamed officer. Oh, don't ever run.
Well, you no.
They also noted that cameras at the store recorded that Fields began fighting with the officer. Don't ever fight. Pushing him and attempting to take him down. That's a bad scene. Mueller noted that he arrived at the scene. The officer had gotten on top of Fields, and the suspect was actively resisting being placed in handcuffs. However, the video of the incident, captured by an off-duty employee of the Nexstar Media Group Incorporated, the parent group of NBC4, begins in these moments and showed that officer repeatedly punched Fields in the head while Fields tried to cover himself with his hands. I think he was probably shouting too, "Want to catch them all, huh? Want to catch them all, huh?" Fields was heard repeatedly shouting that he was sorry in the video. Oh, jeez. Other officers then arrived and assisted in pinning him. Mueller's report said he ordered the suspect several times to place his hands behind his back, turn onto his stomach, and to stop resisting, but noted Fields continued actively resisting our attempts to secure his hands by pulling his arms under his body and trying to roll over. The video showed that as the group asked him to roll over on his stomach, one officer got up and retrieved a taser from the ground. The officer was heard tasing Fields in the video, and the suspect could be heard yelling in pain. It got escalated.
My favorite thing is when someone's doing stuff he's doing and the officers are like, stop resisting, stop resisting. The first thing they say is, I'm not resisting. I'm not resisting. Yes, you are.
Yeah, you are. Neither the unnamed officer punching Fields repeatedly in the head nor another officer tasing the suspect, both captured on video, or mentioned in the unredacted portion of the Westerville police report. Instead, Mueller noted that he was eventually able to control the suspect's right arm and hold it behind his back, while Officer Shoemaker gained control of the suspect's left arm and placed it behind his back. Williams added that Fields sustained injuries during his arrest and was transported to St. Anne's Hospital for treatment. The officer said they retrieved the Pokemon cards as well as suspected drugs from the Impala. Williams and Mueller documented that they suffered scrapes or cuts on their hands, while the unnamed officer received a cut on his finger and swelling on his wrist during the arrest. Fields' mugshot from the arrest showed he suffered a black eye as well as other bruising and cuts to his face and head. Acting president of the Fraternal Order of Police, Brian Steele, said the video shows a snippet of the incident and all of the facts still need to come out. Westerville is one of the most professionally well-led departments in the Fraternal Order of Police. He said, we know that they will give this a thorough review. If there was wrongdoing or some kind of policy violation, the officer will be held accountable. Initially watching it, my training experience, it looks like a good arrest all day long, is what he's quoted as saying.
Okay.
All right.
Don't resist the police.
Fields was charged with felony assault after his arrest, according to Delaware County Common Plea court records. He was not facing any theft charges as of Monday afternoon. A separate case in Franklin County Common Pleas Court showed Fields had pled guilty to a May 2021 arson, but did not show up for his sentencing date. The last activity in the case record showed the court had issued a warrant for his arrest in November. So there you go. Let's move on. A driver nearly hits pool players after crashing into a pub with police in pursuit. We go to England.
Okay.
Where that sort of thing happens.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a pub. They got very narrow streets.
That's true. A Nottinghamshire person place or thing, I guess. I don't know. There's nothing on the end of it. Has been jailed after crashing a stolen Land Rover into a pub in Worksop, England, nearly missing several customers who were playing pool inside. CCTV footage released by Nottinghamshire Police on Monday, December 11th, shows the moment the dangerous driver crashed into the Lockside pub in Worksop after attempting to evade police on March 27th. Police said the driver, 37-year-old Jamie Kettle, had stolen the Land Rover and hit speeds up to 110 miles an hour.
Wow. Land Rover, good for you.
Yeah.
In England, good for you.
Right. On the right side of the road, even. While being pursued by officers, after crashing into the pub, Kettle fled into a nearby canal, but was swiftly located by specialist dogs and arrested. Wow.
Okay.
The fact that he crashed at 110 miles an hour, was able to get out and get into a canal is impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you heard what the game-winning shot of the billiards game was, right?
No, what's that?
8-ball in the passenger cup holder.
Wow, impressive. Kettle was charged with several offenses, including dangerous driving and aggravated vehicle taking.
Aggravated vehicle taking.
Yeah, that sounds like a nice.
As opposed to just vehicle taking.
Yeah, aggravated vehicle taking. He also pleaded guilty to 2 counts of common assault and a witness intimidation charge related to 2 incidents that occurred the year before. He was jailed for 2 years and his driving privileges were revoked for 3 years and 3 months, police said. Very, very impressive. I give him one of these.
I do too.
Yeah, that's
good for him.
Yeah.
Congrats. If you're going to run for the police, run in style.
That's right. That's right. Bruiser, what's your favorite topping for your meatball sandwich?
I love some good mozzarella on there.
Oh, mozzarella is great. How about Visine?
No, it makes me throw up.
Yeah, that would get you sick.
Yep, you put Visine in anything, you make him puke.
That's right. We're going to go to Florida again, where after purchasing a meatball sandwich for his nephew, a Florida man poured Visine all over the food, which was later partially consumed by his relative, according to police, who arrested the man on a felony poisoning charge. Don't ever put Visine on somebody's food unless you want to kill them.
Well, you can put a drop or 2 in someone's food and it makes them sick. But if you put a whole bunch on it, you will poison them. You will kill them.
Yeah. Investigators say 45-year-old James Leach was at a market near his Pinellas Park home Wednesday evening when he asked an employee for a bottle of Visine. Leach allegedly opened a container of food and proceeded to pour the eye drop solution all over the meatball sandwich inside. When a worker declared that the liquid could hurt someone, Leach reportedly replied that it would only cause the victim to shit himself and puke his brains out.
No, not that much will kill him.
Visine's active ingredient, which is tetrahydrozoline hydrochloride, can actually be lethal if ingested.
Yeah.
The market employee, who described Leach as a regular customer, said the suspect had issues with his nephew and declared that he hated his kin. Leach and the victim reside together and have a long history of domestic-related issues, say cops, who added that officers have answered several prior calls for service at the pair's home. After receiving a 911 call from the market, police reviewed store security footage, which the affidavit states clearly showed Leach dousing the meatball sandwich with Visine. When police subsequently arrived at Leach's home, he declined to answer questions and requested a lawyer. The victim said he had only consumed a small portion of the sandwich before cops showed up and was unaware that Visine had been added to his meal. While medical help was summoned for the victim, he ultimately refused treatment. Not a smart move.
Well, yeah, but he didn't have any effects, they said. He was just starting to eat it. So he's probably like, oh, what is going on? Why are so many people watching me eat this sandwich? What do you mean I got to get my stomach pumped? This is a good sandwich.
Right. Leach was charged with the poisoning of food or water, a felony in which he is locked up in lieu of $50,000 bond. A judge has charged Leach, or ordered Leach rather, who has pleaded not guilty. I can't believe he's pleaded not guilty. He's on film to have no contact with the victim. Leach's rap sheet includes convictions for improper exhibition of a firearm and resisting or obstructing police without violence. Here's a look for you, Bruiser, at the guy who puts Visine in your sandwich.
Yeah, he looks like a douche.
He does, doesn't he? Well, that's the other end. That's not the eyes. That's
it blows my mind that he's caught on film.
Yeah.
And the marketplace people even told him, hey, you shouldn't do that. So there's an eyewitness.
Yes.
He still pleads not guilty.
Still pleads not guilty. 3 stories left in Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals. A Florida man gets agitated by the neighborhood Christmas parade, decides to fire off a few gunshots.
That's not how you handle that.
No, we're staying in Florida. We go to Middleburg, where a Florida man was arrested after he allegedly fired off several shots during a neighborhood Christmas parade because he became agitated at what parade goers were doing.
You know, celebrating Christmas.
Yeah, because,
I get it. Like, by the time actual Christmas rolls around, you're sick of Christmas music because everyone's been playing it since July.
Yeah.
So you're just like, all right, I'm sick of it. But firing guns at people is not the way to do it.
No, just put in some...
Leave Mariah Carey alone.
Yeah, put in some earplugs and go in the other room. 43-year-old Douglas Moore was arrested and charged with 6 counts of aggravated assault with a firearm, reckless discharge of a firearm, and using a firearm while under the influence of alcohol after the incident that unfolded in the 4100 block of County Road 21B in Middleburg on Saturday had happened, according to an arrest affidavit. As the Middleburg Christmas parade was underway Saturday evening, deputies and SWAT team members responded to a location along the parade route after several gunshots were heard. Middleburg is about 30 miles southwest of Jacksonville. According to deputies, Moore became agitated by the activities generated by parade attendees. That's when he discharged a pistol several times while walking onto the property where a group of people were. The arrest affidavit noted that no victims or witnesses ever entered Moore's property, so they were not in his yard.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Deputies said that when they approached the back of the property, they saw several people yelling at the suspect, identified as Moore, at the property line. They were demanding to know why he was shooting a gun at them, according to the affidavit. When Moore allegedly refused to comply with deputies' orders to get on the ground, he was taken to the ground and put into custody. Deputies also observed Moore's slurred speech and bloodshot, watery eyes. I think that means he was on something.
He was drinking a little bit of the eggnog, huh?
I think so. No injuries were reported. No one was struck by the gunfire, according to deputies. Moore was transported to the Clay County Jail.
Well, that's good. Nobody was hurt.
That's true. That's very true.
Just some idiot who just hates Christmas.
Speaking of an idiot that loves Christmas but hates dogs, I'm going to make this short because it is a gruesome story. A man who was a witness said a man who resembled Santa Claus shot a dog to death and wounded another canine. And yes, we're going to Florida again, near his Florida residence. That, according to cops who seized the suspect's rifle and charged him with several felonies. Investigators allege that 61-year-old Joseph Seal fired on the animals Tuesday afternoon about a block from his Fort Pierce residence. Police found the dead dog surrounded in a pool of and droplets of blood, while the second dog, suffering from a through-and-through wound, was discovered hiding in an abandoned house. Cops reported finding 4 .22 caliber shell casings at the scene of the shooting. A witness stated that an older white male who looks like Santa Claus emerged from a wooded area and shot at the dogs. An arrest affidavit does not indicate if someone owned the dogs or whether they were strays. A man who reported hearing multiple shots said the rifle-toting Seal had declared he was going to go take care of business. That's a quote.
Tell you what, you want to get on my bad side. You want to see how hard I fight. Hurt my wife, hurt my kids, or hurt my dogs.
That's right. A police check of dispatch records associated with Seal's residence revealed that a Joe called 911 last month and threatened to shoot and kill the dogs. Seal cops say was the Joe that contacted 911. Seal was arrested on multiple charges, including animal cruelty and the use of a firearm during the commission of a felony. He's being held in the St. Lucie County Jail in lieu of $18,250 bond. Tell you what, up the bond, and any criminals that want to have a go at him, go ahead.
Yeah.
That's right.
Start spreading rumors he was touching children or hurting animals.
That's right. You guys can just take all day and do whatever you want.
Yep.
There you go. And finally, this is our not safe for work portion of the program. We'll give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This guy's a little sick. Okay, I'm going to give you a picture of him here, Bruiser.
He looks like a late 90s boy band guy.
Doesn't he?
He could be in a boy band, yeah.
All right, here's the deal with this guy. Of course, we're staying in Florida. A lot of Florida stories today.
Well, of course, it's Florida.
This,
while they're waiting, you say it's God's waiting room. While they're waiting, they commit crimes.
That's right. While they're waiting to go to the great beyond, they're creating plenty of mischief. This guy molested a manatee mannequin.
It's not even a real manatee.
It's not even a real manatee, which would be disgusting, but
Yes.
it was a manatee mannequin.
Do you think he was singing the song, Barbara, manatee, manatee, manatee?
He was also accused of throwing gator nuggets.
What are gator nuggets?
Oh, I'm about to tell you, my friend.
Okay.
During a drunken outburst last Friday evening, a man threw quote-unquote gator nuggets into a Florida restaurant and then proceeded to sexually molest a manatee mannequin in front of staff and patrons of the establishment.
Here, everyone, take some gator nuggets. And you big, sexy, beautiful bitch, you're coming home with me.
Oh, he wasn't even coming home. He was taking it right there.
Yes.
Yeah. Investigators say 23-year-old Anthony Michael Lessa was intoxicated when he caused a disturbance at Rick's Reef, which is a St. Petersburg seafood joint. Seafood, see this. Just saying.
Do you think he mistook the manatee for the waitress, and that's why he started doing it? He was that drunk?
It's kind of hard to mistake one for the other. Yeah. You know what I mean? Lessa, cops allege, was throwing gator nuggets found in his right pants pocket upon arrest into the restaurant.
He came into the restaurant with gator nuggets in his pocket, okay?
Yeah. When employees confronted Lessa about flinging the nuggets, he became belligerent and advanced on the life-size manatee. Yeah.
Okay. Come here, you.
Note,
I'm gonna get you.
Note, as for those airborne gator bites, here's your note as to what gator nuggets are.
I'm curious.
Think chicken nuggets, but instead they're made with alligator meat.
Oh, those could be good.
Well, if they get cold, they get rubbery.
Well, yeah, they obviously turn into weapons.
Or they bounce off your forehead lovingly, one or the other. To the shock and likely amusement of onlookers, Lessa then went on to sexually molest the mannequin, the manatee mannequin, which has been known to wear a T-shirt promoting the consumption of tacos.
Okay.
It's a joke within a joke. I'll show you the manatee in a second. A criminal complaint does not further describe the alleged molestation of the manatee. After running from the eatery, Lessa, cops charged, caused a disturbance at a nearby hotel where he yelled and cursed at a front desk worker and stood in the parking lot yelling obscenities.
That's because he wanted a room for him and his manatee. She wouldn't give it to him.
I guess.
Look at this big, beautiful bitch. I'm going to take her and I'm going to ravage her. Give me a room.
When police arrived at the scene, Lessa exhibited multiple signs of intoxication and kept asking why he was being arrested. Charged with disorderly intoxication and disturbance, Lessa was booked into the jail on the misdemeanor count. He was released from custody early Saturday morning. According to his LinkedIn page, Lessa is a student pilot who is attending a flight school in Ponte Vedra, Florida. Lessa, who attended West Virginia University, that explains a lot, gave his home address as his family's Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania residence. How nice.
Yeah.
He's
getting everybody involved.
He's he has multi-state residence.
I guess so.
He's a world traveler. Here, Bruiser, is the manatee in question.
Oh, that's a cute manatee.
Yeah, it's got a little shirt on that says, "Did someone say tacos?"
Yeah. And it looks like an everyday man. How would you sexually molest it? There's nothing sexual on there.
Well, you have to think, now, if you look, the manatee has its little legs tightly wound.
Yeah.
So I got to think maybe there was a little oral involved. I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe he did whip this thing out and tried to rub up against it. I don't know. There's a menu board right next to it.
Maybe he got the second base with it by putting his hand up the shirt.
Oh, that could be. I don't know. Questions, and more questions. Questions we can't answer on this episode of Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals. maybe you have a theory as to how you molest a manatee mannequin. If you do, write in tim@darknessradio.com. We'll air your dirty, dirty thoughts. Because I got nothing.
I don't know how. I just see a manatee. I see a manatee statue.
I got nothing. Bruiser, what's going on this weekend?
We got some training at the AML Training Center. AMLwrestling.com/training. And then January 20th, Big War Games 3. Coming to Winston-Salem, Benton Convention Center. Got Kurt Angle coming in, Arn Anderson, and J.J. Dillon. So come watch. The war will be settled.
There you go. There you go. I'm off from KNSI for a couple weekends, so there you go.
Oh, yeah, it's the holidays.
It's the holidays, but we got big shows coming up. Big shows coming up this week. We've got Supernatural News coming up, and then Thursday, we have a big show coming up with a guest that is going to change your perspective. We have a guest that not only is a demonologist, but has had some interesting experiences with UFOs.
Really? Okay. Well, we've heard them linked in the past.
Yeah, so we're going to sit down on Thursday with our guest, Terry Ling Kell. And she will be with us on Thursday. We'll talk with her about her experiences with demonology and with UFOs. That's coming up on Thursday. So there you go.
Okay.
All right. So that is it for today for True Crime Tuesday. I want to thank John Ferak for being with us and that update on Steven Avery and the Making Murderer case. Again, the book is out there. We have a link in the description of the program, the update to that book that we were talking about earlier today. So go out and get that book. The name of that book is Wrecking Crew, Demolishing the Case Against Steven Avery. That'll do it. Join us tomorrow for Supernatural News on Darkness Radio. Thank you very much for listening to True Crime Tuesday.